of water savings. Okay. I mean, every time from last several decades, ever since I started writing on the environmental issues and traveling and seeing people struggling to get drinking water, every time I flush my toilet, I actually wonder what the hell we are doing. We sending out fresh water to flush out waste, and it's such a terrible system, and it can be so easily amended. But not a single municipal corporation is doing this, making this compulsory.
But like I said, we seem to be a little progressive. In my community, we use STP water in flushes, the treated water in flush.
Yeah, but see that what that needs is a separate plumbing system. You need a dual plumbing system for that to work.
We have a dual plumbing system.
So you're lucky because you're lucky. But it should actually, the municipal corporation
be a default thing. Yeah, it should be something which is default. Let's say in design part, it should be default. And it doesn't cost much. I mean, like you said, hardly 3% increase, but that way you save a lot of water. I mean, every flush, 20 liters just goes out. And I know for sure that there are a lot of people around our community only who would pay about 50, 60 rupees to get one can of 20 liters.
I know, it's crazy. It is just crazy.
Each flush is $50.
And then because you're short of water, fresh water, you go and build bigger and bigger dams, and with all associated problems. It's just silly.
And Rag, your panelists, anybody from health here yet? Health and
sanitation? No, none. That's the thing. Shall we start now? I guess we should start now.
We could.
Yeah. Even yesterday, I missed 2 panelists. Remember, Jayan?
Yes.
We only had 2 panelists and we were missing 2 panelists.
So, yes. So we just suddenly opened up discussion to all the participants and we had a fantastic discussion, right?
Yeah. So that's okay. So very warm welcome to all of you. Shailendra, Raju ji and Jayan ji and all the volunteers. This is our last day, 3rd day of IC conference 2021. So before I open the floor, let me introduce the Shailendra Singh Bisht. Shailendra Singh Bisht currently works in the marketing and strategy area, ICFAI Business School, Hyderabad, India, and has a research, consulting, and teaching experience in the area of affordability, accessibility, and acceptance in green livelihood, natural resources management, microfinance, healthcare, and education service marketing. As an academic and researcher in the management, he has managed and disseminated research on the interface between the marketing, technology, and public policy intervention in India. He lives in Hyderabad with his wife and a daughter and occasionally treks in Garhwal Himalayas. He has completed 13 full marathons and 4 ultra marathons, including 72-kilometer Khardung La Challenge 2017, 100-kilometer Maland Ultra 218, and 18-kilometer Brown Town Ultra 2021. So very warm welcome, Shailendra. Take us to the another ultra marathon. So floor is yours. We'll wait for this thing.
If you could just I've got 2 more friends here, Jayant and Rajuji. Both of them have made significant contributions in academics and industry, and Jayant was my co-moderator in last session. I think we had a lot of fun time there.
Yes.
What I read from his bio, Jayant is also a runner, so that makes us really close. Runner for the world.
I'm more of a cyclist actually. Cyclist and swimming is what I enjoy. Running is. In fact, incidentally, in 2017 when you were running into Khardung, I was cycling there. So from Manali to Khardung.
Okay. Same here. Same here. Okay. 2017. I was there in September 2017.
Yeah. You've been to trek this year also, Sheldon. If I remember, I saw your post.
Yeah. I mean, we could manage to go out for about 9 days, high altitude, so it was nice.
Okay.
Rajuji is also here. I mean, I was really impressed yesterday by his contribution, and I would say the clarity in the thought process, and I think that comes from a long experience of dealing with real issues at ground level and also at the policy and execution level. So welcome to the 2 panelists that we have here, Jayant and Rajuji. What I would do, Anurag, is because we don't have anybody yet from the health and sanitation thing.
Yeah.
Let's try to see if you could combine health and economy. That's what the topic looks like.
Yeah.
And of course, let us start by addressing the big elephant in the room, which happens to be post-COVID and COVID.
Mhm.
And then COVID and what has happened to economy and health in the sense health economy and health in general. And then try to see what kind of challenges are there.
Yeah.
So if I have to, lay out the sort of background there, what has happened because of the health emergency, health tragedy that we have in the form of COVID, a lot of sustainability issues and a lot of sustainability imperatives that we have had for long have gone for a toss. A very simple example, and perhaps others could build on it, is in terms of single-use plastics. And something that we had spent decades on making sure that people get rid of single-use plastic suddenly made a huge comeback during COVID, where everybody was so paranoid about contracting COVID that everybody started using disposable plastic kind of gloves and mask and headgear and shoe cover and I don't know, it looks so bad when you get out of an airport. On either side of the airport, you would find those the thin piece of cloth that airlines used to give you dumped all over. Everything has been packaged in 3-layered packaging of plastic, and everything used to be dumped everywhere. So in last 18 months, I think the use of single-use plastic because of this thing has gone up significantly. That has contributed to a tremendous amount of sanitation challenge in terms of cleanliness, both biodegradable as well as plastic in that sense. But more importantly, what has happened is, and this is, I'm just trying to lay out the ground, what has happened is that survival and that the sheer nature that, oh, let's concentrate on surviving and let us concentrate on seeing the next day, where the larger imperatives of sustainability, climate change have taken a sort of back burner, both from a regulatory point of view, government interventions, as well as private individuals also. So I just wanted to sort of bring these two things together, and let's look at health as health systems and health economy and economy in general. And because of COVID, this disruption that we have seen, negative disruption that we have seen, what could be sort of what challenges it has thrown up first, especially from a climate point of view, climate change and sustainability point of view. So either of the two experts, let's give to Rajuji first. Rajuji, if you want to have your quick comments on this, and then we go to Jayant as well.
Actually, Jayant, Shailendra, you reminded me of a couple of lines from Sahir Ludhianvi. In his poem Parchaiyan, Sahir Ludhianvi's poem is, of course, an anti-war poem, anti-nuclear arms poem. But in that, he describes a drought. And then he says, and how because of the poverty caused by the drought, severe famine and drought, the farmers had to sell the land. And he goes on to say, जीने के तमन्ना के हाथों जीने के सभी सामान बिके. Okay, so in the bid to survive, they had to sell everything that would help them survive. And I think whether it's COVID, the crisis, or the larger climate crisis, this is exactly what is happening to India's poor and the poor all over the world. So let me take it slightly away from just plastics and stuff, because I think that's a very small issue, and let's look at the larger issue of what climate change is doing and what it means to the poor. So there are 2-3 things. We have about 380 million poor in this country. Okay, as per government estimates, so probably far more than that. Okay, but let's stick to government estimates. Okay, because so you're saying something, Shailendra?
Well, I'm just saying that as of now, 78 crore people are taking grain subsidy. That's what the central government claims, that 78 crore people are getting the grain subsidy from the government. So if you're taking a grain subsidy,
No, you're right. You're right. I'm going by poverty data published in budget papers. Okay. So even at 38 crores, okay, which is what 300 million is, 380 million is, it's a very large number. Okay. Majority of these poor are dependent on agriculture. Okay. Okay, our agricultural holdings are fractured. A lot of them are not sustainable. And unfortunately, climate crisis is hitting the hardest in agriculture. You know, there are various research reports point out that it is affecting the yield of major crops, whether it is rice or wheat or others. Some may benefit. Soybean, for example, may actually benefit by higher temperatures, but most of our agriculturists are suffering. They have, of course, frequent droughts, unseasonal rains. So a whole lot of problems in the agricultural area. So climate change is actually pushing these people further and further into poverty. The problem on a policy level and economy level is this. So, you know, I was watching the COP26 debates yesterday with when the agreement was finally reached, whatever in form it is. The North wanted to phase out coal. South, led by India, was saying not phase out, but phase down. Okay, why? You know, as a climate activist, you would think this is silly because, you know, coal is really one of the biggest issues when it comes to climate change, right? Burning of coal for power and other stuff. The problem in India is different. If you have to provide income and, you know, to these crores of poor, whether 38 or 70 or whatever the number is, right? They need incomes, they need jobs, they need growth, economic growth. Okay, so the imperatives before any policymaker of any party who comes to power. I mean, there is, you know, Swang party today, it might be someone else tomorrow. The imperatives are, you know, you have these two contrasting very issues. One is climate change is real, it's affecting a very large section of our population, if not all of humanity. Even, you know, even if you keep mass extinction away for a minute. On the other hand, you need something because these people are going to die today. Okay, I mean, today in the sense that, you know, they need survival, means of survival today, not about how in 2030 or 2040 or 2050 or 2070, as the PM said, you know, we'll go neutral. They need ways of tackling the poverty today. And if you want to tackle that poverty, means of tackling the poverty today, you need to go, you know, you need more power, you need more industry, you need more jobs. So this is the dilemma that faces people. And I don't see, frankly, I don't see any easy answers out of this.
I think that I'm completely on with you on that point. And though you talk about, let's say, the large number of poor, and I mean, the estimates vary, but let's even stick to the conservative estimate of 380 million, and they have been badly affected because of climate. I mean, just a point, because Anurag also spoke about that I check in Garhwal Himalayan. It's more of an anecdotal thing, but there are certain communities or certain groups which are actually on the part of which are very which depend a lot. And we did a major project with FES on green livelihoods, where we were looking at people who actually depend on nature, natural resources to earn their livelihoods, and not in an exploitative sense, but they depend on them. And they are the ones who have been really, really badly affected because of things. And because they are right at the edge, they get affected much more than anybody else. We living in city may not get affected, but for them, the effect is immediate. It is not 2030 or not 2050. It is already there. So I do treks in Garhwal Himalayas, and these grasslands are called bugyals. And these are all 3,000 meters, 10,000 feet plus. And you find those shepherds every year. So every year, in fact, one of the year I took my daughter along, and she did a small school project. And she was talking to these guys, and they said that every year the snow is found at a higher altitude. Every year. And these are the people, because they depend on snow covered, because once the snow melts, then only the grass would come out, and that is what nourishes their sheep and goats, and that is what keeps that entire economy alive. And they say, boss, every year it is exceptionally changing the environment, and we have started going higher and higher. Earlier, we used to find good pastures at 2,000, 3,000 meters itself. Now we have to go all the way to 3,200 meters, 3,300 meters also, which is not traditionally the places we used to go. And I checked the year after Kedarnath tragedy, and I said, how did it impact you, Kedarnath tragedy? Where, I mean,
Yeah.
they said, boss, we were at a higher altitude and my entire herd died. Not because of rain, but because of snow. They were at a high altitude where it started snowing at that time of the year itself. And these guys lost, and these guys have 500, 1,000 sheep at one go, and they lost the entire stock in one shot. So though we talk about the regular kind of, let's say, large masses, but there are more communities which are at the fringes on very hugely dependent more. I mean, you gave example of agriculture, which is really, in India, agriculture is totally dependent on monsoon, nothing else for marginal farmers. But also other communities which are really dependent on nature in terms of living close to them, they have been affected very badly. Yeah, I just thought I'll just bring this. This is more anecdotal. It's not a research in that sense, but I think we can find more evidence, similar evidence as well. Jayant, you want to bring in your perspective here?
Yeah, so I'm not really an economist, but yes, what I can share is a few of my opinions and two paradigms, in fact, and a lot of questions which I personally have. I really don't have an answer, unlike what is expected out of an expert. So one is the whole way we understand economy. You know, the more we consume, better it is for the economy, better the GDP, and you know, then there's growth. But then that whole approach to economy is so skewed or so faulty, because the more we consume, then this whole consumer-driven attitude is what is actually killing the climate. You know, so the way we look at economy and what we actually teach in business schools is actually harming the climate. And me, even as a professor in one of the management colleges and having a PhD in management, I constantly am in this dilemma. And well, I try my bit to see how best I can balance, but I don't know. I mean, I haven't found a solution to this really. So that's one part of it. And you know, how we can encourage students to think of circular economy. Circular is not just in terms of finance, but the larger picture where you also take climate into account. It is difficult. I mean, of course, you go talk in the class, talk in the seminars, but when it comes to you know, living your daily life, you know, you're very happy picking up a packet of chip, and then, when you finish, just dispose it off on the road. And I mean, how many people can you talk to and correct? And so it's really, I mean, I don't know actually how to deal with this. That's point number one. Point number two is fine. This is the traditional economics, you know, how we've been looking at it and studying about it for decades. There's a whole new paradigm which is coming up, you know, with all this blockchain and cryptocurrency. There's a whole new economic system which is emerging, which is actually threatening the current even governments, and that's probably the reason, you know, they're against it. So I mean, you have a whole economy around Bitcoin or a given cryptocurrency. Now, to keep that kind of it's called as tokenomics. You know? So you create those Bitcoins and cryptos and tokens. You know, you tokenize the assets, and then you move around them, move that value across the world. So to keep that kind of economy going, the amount of energy that you generate, you know, consume. So when to keep that kind of a blockchain running, you know, the huge volumes of electricity that you consume and the heat that it generates and the coal that is used in the process, assuming, I mean, most of the energy comes from coal. Of course, there are blockchains which run on microhydros also, but yeah. So that is, I guess, I don't think many people of course, there are people who are aware of it, but there's not much attention in that direction. So I don't know where it's going to lead to. So it's basically just compounding the issue, in my opinion. So these are the issues which really need a lot of thought. And well, currently I'm not getting in what I think the solutions are. But yes, I just wanted to bring in these perspectives, and probably now we can talk about it. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Rajesh, please go ahead.
Okay, so I actually said this a couple of days ago on one of the other panels. And what I feel is that we have a strange situation in the world today. Okay, on one level is the force of nature. By changing the climate, so there is a natural law as to how much you can abuse your systems and your nature, and and what is the effect it is going to have on all the entire world, not just humanity but all species. So that's one part of it. The second part of it is what is the law of economics. Each one of us, whatever station we are in, we want an improvement in a lifestyle. Okay, what that improvement is can differ from people to people, person to person, and country to country, socio-economic strata, the whole lot of variables. But one fact remains that from wherever we are, we want to improve our lifestyle, livelihood. Unless you are a monk and you're sitting in some cave in Himalaya, that's the reality of it. Now, these two forces, so one propels the economy that you're talking about, Dr. Saab, about the current economy, where current economic model, where there is growth is the center of that economic model. And then now we are coming up against nature, which is saying, well, hang on, guys, it's only, we can take only this much, and you're going to have problems after that. I always believe that, yes, there are macro level discussions on phasing out coal and containing emissions at 1.5 degrees and so on and so forth. And there are a lot of discussions along that. And subplots in it in terms of financing, in terms of innovation and financing of the innovation and research as well. I always believe that a lot of this comes down to micro solutions. Okay, I'll give you an example. One thing that has been in the news over the last few weeks and will be over the next few weeks is the pollution in Delhi. It happens every year by the stubble burning. Okay, it happens almost like clockwork. So it's not like it's not a natural event or some volcano exploding suddenly that no one can predict. This is a predictable event. Now there are enough companies in the country itself who make briquettes from bio waste, from agricultural waste, and they use them to power their boilers. Okay, and they are actually in Maharashtra and a few places I know, they are actually going around to farmers and saying, give us your bio waste, we'll buy it from you, agricultural waste, and allow us to make briquettes, because then we can. I don't see any reason why and this is just one of the solutions. There are some research institutes in India which have come up with other solutions as well. I can't see why this can't be implemented on a level across Punjab, across Haryana, across UP, where the stubble burning happens. Humans are motivated, in my experience, to change their behavior only by two things. One is incentive, and the other is disincentive. We all started wearing masks only when we were afraid of contracting COVID. We all religiously started washing our hands only, washing them for those 20 seconds that was prescribed, only after all of us were worried that we will get COVID and die. Similarly, incentives are the other major factor. You have to use two of these things, incentive and disincentive to change behavior. And a lot of behaviors in the world can be changed by intelligent use of this. Unfortunately, in India especially, but all over the world, we just don't have the political will to do it.
Very insightful again. I mean, any quick comments from other panelists or other guests? I see Amrita is also here. Amrita, there's just one thing, Rajuji, and again, this is again, I can't recall the exact policy there, but one of the reasons as to why farmers have started indulging in this stubble burning is the shortening crop cycles in some sense, that they wouldn't want to wait even when if they have to sell that and briquettes have to be made, it would still take time. Now, what is happening is that they would want to get on to the next crop as early as possible. And this is also happening because of earlier paddy sowing. So paddy season in Punjab, more specifically, so I lived in Punjab in 91, 92, and they used to do it in May. Now it's almost shifted to April. So that means that in October, November, they are not finding enough time for ensuring that they could do something about it in terms of they plowing it down or cutting it and giving to somebody else and stuff like that. So the fastest, I mean, I'm not apologizing on behalf of farmers in that sense, but I'm just trying to bring out one facet there, and it is driven by the procurement policy of the central government as well and the state government as well, that the procurement policies have created an incentive, farmers' incentive to sow early. And when they have started sowing early, so the time between two crops has been reduced drastically. So they wouldn't have any incentive. The incentive to sow early is greater than leaving it on the field and then trying to figure out, can I make some money out of it or not? But this is just a response to what you're saying in terms of incentive not working there.
Shailendra, that's exactly my point, that, what works is incentive or disincentive. So if this is one incentive, you need to find, and disincentive in this case will not work. They'll just go and fire the it's impossible to police, and it will be silly to police, right? So you need to offer them other incentives for making them wait for those crucial 8-10 days before they can sell the stuff. It is possible. I'm saying the solution.
It is possible. Of course, it is possible. It is possible, and I think the way should be explored for doing that as well. Yeah. I just wanted to, depending on what Jayant was saying and also what we are seeing here in terms of, I also teach in a business school, and all of us have been blamed for creating that unnecessary commercial need and the need for products and stuff like that to keep the economy growing. But there are examples as well. So I just wanted to point out, if somebody would want to talk about, it's a circular economy where, let's see if we could reuse and reduce the original thing. So instead of getting into a linear model where you produce, use, and then discard, and thereby creating both health and sanitation challenges as well as unnecessary wastage, could we get into more sustainable economic models as well? And one of them is definitely in terms of getting into a circular model where more reuse. I mean, as a country, I would say we have, informally, we already have that model where most of the stuff is reused. But over the last few years, we have seen that trend, especially because of what is happening in urban areas where use and throw happens to be more dominant model, and thereby creating, one, in terms of unnecessary expenses, and two, in terms of also creating sanitation, health and sanitation issues.
What I think is, it's just that circular economy is great, but then I think there's no incentive in terms of implementing this whole circular economy concept, because then you're not consuming enough, and then that's going to negatively impact the GDP. So a very simple example where you have this whole movement called the right to repair. But there are corporations who want the consumers to use the product, and there's something called a self-obsolescence. So if I have a mobile phone, after 2 or 3 years, it will start slowing down. I have to throw it and buy a new one, and they ensure that it happens, so that they keep selling more and the GDP goes. So I think the GDP itself is such a wrong indicator of economic growth or so-called growth. So I think these skewed indicators and skewed metrics that we have is actually, and then we actually teach, and give them marks that, okay. So I think we are at our level culprits are part of the problem actually. So, okay. Yeah, and also I think we have not touched upon the health part of it. So so when you talk about economy, so we focus so much on volume vis-a-vis the quality. Like, okay, I mean, simple. We have Jersey cows giving milk in terms of volumes, which we replaced for such wonderful Indian breed of cows, Gir, for example. So which now somebody else is adapting, and obviously, so when you focus on volume and less on quality, like organic food, for example, earlier, I mean, I was reading a book called Simplify by Captain Gopinath. He says in his days, organic food was all the poor people consumed. Now it's become a luxury for rich. And obviously that's going to impact health and all the issues that we have created in the process for ourselves. So these are really interrelated things, health, economy, of course. So yes, just wanted to touch upon that point. Thank you.
Yeah. Just to bring, and Rag also gave that responsibility, health and economy in that sense. And so one of the things that I've read, and this is the kind of work that I've also done, is in terms of health shocks, pushing poor people into generational poverty in that. One health shock can push families into an economy or in a financial problem, which could wipe out at least a generation of gains. Generational gains they could wipe out. And again, having a robust health system, a very robust health system, an equitable and accessible health system would go a long way in creating a more sustainable economy as well. And we have seen multiple models of healthcare, and I'm pretty sure that the present government is working on the Ayushman Bharat project, where health insurance in that sense are making sure that people have access to healthcare facilities, because especially women in that sense, because a lot of women would step out of economic activity, and we have seen the impact of women stepping out is basically going to hit on what Jayant calls as false numbers and GDP numbers also, and other numbers, women participation. And they are the ones, whenever a family has a health shock, and they are the ones who step out of the world of work, formal, informal, and take care of the sick ones. And that creates burden on families, but that also is creating a huge burden on the overall economy in that sense. So I would say that both of the topics are in that sense very much related, that health shocks can prevent economic growth. And if you need economic growth, you need to have a very robust healthcare system as well. So there are other panelists, Anurag, Jain, Rajesh, Amrita, I can't see you now.
I just want to ask your all three opinion about the COP26. There they have come. I have come up with the green finances.
Yeah, well, so sort of 100 billion by 2020. Now they are talking about 500 billion by 2025. I think it will be the same fate that the 100 million met by 2020. Let's be honest, it's not going to happen. Okay, the North is not going to provide that money, and the South, like a panelist and one of the other panelists yesterday said, we will have to find our own solutions, and we'll have to find our own. That money is not coming. It's just it has about as much relevance and as much credibility as America's this to cut emissions or use commitment to cut emissions. Not going to happen.
Okay, so it's not feasible.
No, see, understand one thing. Trump walked out of the Paris Accord, right? And it was welcomed by his constituency, which is almost 50% of American electorate. You think Joe Biden will be able to give that kind of money? Is that possible when America itself is facing huge economic crisis? Let's be real, guys. It's all very well to for sloganeering, saying okay, now we're going to get 500 billion by 2025. It is not going to happen. The sooner we realize it, and sooner as countries in the South we start planning for our own way ahead, the better it will be for us.
What's your take, Shah?
No, what Rajuji said in terms of So 2016 COP in Morocco, I actually went to Morocco to participate in COP there in Morocco 2016. And Rajuji, the only thing I saw there is Matam. because it was at the same time, in November first week, US elections had already been completed.
Yeah.
And Trump was already the president. President doesn't designate.
Yeah.
And everybody knew that this guy has already promised that I'm going to walk out of the Paris Accord. And it was almost like कि 13वीं चल रही है, 7 का दिन चल रहा है. It was so depressing. The entire conference was so depressing that nobody was saying anything because nobody knew what is going to happen now. And it was so unexpected because everybody was thinking Hillary Clinton is going to win and this is going to continue. This came like a shock.
Yeah.
And it was right when the conference was on, and then everything changed. Every damn thing changed. Why? Because everybody knew that if world's top polluter steps out, then what is the sanctity of this entire thing?
Yeah.
What is the sanctity of this entire thing? And that, what Rajuji is pointing out in terms of global north and more specifically, let's say, US in that sense, or in Eastern, in our part, China in that sense, and these two guys connect. And they have their own constraints and they have their own constituencies to look at.
Absolutely.
China, all said and done, still wants to take the economy to the next orbit. US, all said and done, is under a tremendous, I would say, a civil kind of strife, a civil strife, where there are communities and groups in US which have suffered. I mean, it's said they are not happy about the situation, and I guess there is a likelihood that somebody like Trump can come back again. I mean, there is those issues are still around, and people are suffering because of that. So, to depend on money or green in that sense, green money or green financing or dollars or euros to come in, euro might still, but dollars to come in would be, and especially to global south, some of it. So, Rajuji, the present infrastructure bill that Joe Biden has sort of got through, close to $1 trillion, has some component for green in terms of a lot of conservation effort and green technologies, but none of that money is going to come out.
Absolutely.
To our place. I mean, some of that might be there in US and other places, but for that money to come out, I think that's a really long call. So they would commit and spend it in US itself. That's what he has committed. Not,
and you know what?
I think it's close to $100 billion.
And this is a prediction I'm making now, that if this deal stands, like EU is already talking about it, okay, they are going to use non-tariff barriers, okay, on trade. So you want to export to the EU countries, you have to prove that you're sustainable, otherwise there is a tariff applicable to you, okay, and that money then will be funneled back to the south. So who's paying for it really? Let's be real.
They've used it earlier as well. EU in that sense has used phytosanitary earlier.
Yeah.
Health standards and sanitary standards and stuff like that. And they have always used NTBs and non-tariff barriers to set their standards and then perhaps put some of that money back in the global south to improve some situations. But yeah, it's unlikely that most of it is flow. I mean, you will have to look for our own resources in that sense. We'll have to have our own policies in that sense too. To look forward.
Even speaking of green fintech, in fact, before I say something, I would. There are a lot of other participants here. So we have Rahul, we have
I was about to
Andrea.
say that.
Yeah, if you, I would like to hear from you before. Because
we've got about 8 minutes here.
Yeah.
So I see that we have Amruta was. I mean, at least she was active. I mean, I could see her.
Yeah.
Amruta, she's back now.
Yeah.
She's a volunteer. Maria, Nalini, Rahul, Abhishek, Sananda. Good to see you guys here. I mean, having been my class.
Yeah.
Any quick comments? Yeah.
Yeah.
Any
if you
quick
have any
comments?
question, please ask the question now.
No, no, they are the ones who should be answering. It is on them. I mean, I am 45, so I'm done with whatever has to
Same
be
here.
done here. It is for these guys now to manage.
Yeah.
Come on, let's start with Amrita here. Amrita, your comments on what is happening, what you have heard, and what are your insights.
Amrita?
Like, there was one thing when we are talking about other economic and aspects. So I'm not very much into those topics. There's always one thing that's I think about when we talk about some change in some practices and bringing in like some environment friendly practices into picture. Like one of the thing would be like if we are people who are making POP idols or something, it's their livelihood that we would be kind of, if we say don't make the POP idols, then how do we deal with such situations where if we are telling that there is something that you shouldn't do, or on the other hand, even making the clay idols, that's also some at a point, though a little more sustainable or maybe environment friendly in a way, it yet has some implications on how and it affects the environment. So there are some traditional practices that go on, but how do we kind of deal with it when we say this is not good for environment and something you have to probably change or move to something else?
I think that's a very interesting question, Amrita. Let me rephrase it so for the experts to say. So what basically, I mean, I don't want to put words in our mouth, but what I would add my question saying, when we are moving from, let's say, a regular economic model that we have to a more sustainable economic model, some jobs are going to go away.
Yeah.
How do we transition onto this new work culture where some jobs are going to go away? When you move from agriculture to industry, some jobs went away. Agriculture, industry to services, some jobs would go away. So when we move from this more exploitative, let's say, mode of production to a more sustainable mode of production, some jobs would go away. So what would be, as an expert, what would be your opinion? How do we tackle that?
See, it's not just some jobs will go away. You also have to look at the nature of the jobs. Okay, I mean, okay. To first talking about some jobs will go away. Let me put, because coal has been so much a part of the COP26 discussion. Millions of jobs in India are dependent on coal. Okay, let's not make any mistake about that. Millions of people depend on coal for their livelihood. So if the government had suddenly agreed to phase it out by 2030, all these jobs would have been lost. And that cannot happen. So let's keep that aside. The other thing that I was talking about is it's not just the jobs going away, it's the nature of the jobs that changes. Okay, so inevitably in an economic cycle and in any kind of transition, whether it's from agriculture to industry or from the present exploitative model to a more sustainable model of economy, what you will see happening is that the less skilled jobs are the ones that tend to go away fastest. Okay, and it is the more skilled jobs that and unfortunately there are the number of more skilled jobs required are far lower than the number of people we have or who will need jobs, and that is the problem. So the government has been talking a lot about skill development and stuff like that. I will not get into how far those efforts have been effective, because that's a whole other discussion. But very critically, that is whether we do it the way this government is doing it or whether we find some other model for skill development, that really is the key. You need to get your people skilled to so that they can move to other jobs and more sustainable jobs, so more sustainable ways of earning their livelihood. Without that, you're just basically telling these people to starve. That you can't do this and you starve because you're not giving them any option, and that obviously is not on, right?
In fact, I just want to kind of try and take 2 minutes to share a slide that I have. I'm working on a project in the area of green finance. So just to kind of touch upon what Anurag said earlier and try and address Amrita's question. So there's a bit of, this is a slide. Is this slide visible to all of you? Yeah, okay. So, when you talk about green finance, there are a lot of use cases or applications which are actually coming up in this area. So you talk about environmental risk management, environmental benefit management, credit, carbon, green bonds, green investments. So currently we're trying to develop a platform to get the clean tech companies and the people who are very keen on funding only the clean tech companies. So get them kind of a P2P lending platform. Of course, it'll have a blockchain element and stuff on it. So the point here is we'll have a lot of, as Raju said, we will have a lot of new jobs being also created in different areas, of course, but it will need reskilling. So you'll have to change, you'll have to learn a few new things so that you can fit yourself into those new job roles. So the jobs don't really go away, but there are new jobs which will be created, and you'll have to reskill yourself. So yeah, that's just wanted to highlight. There are a lot of things in this, but yeah, okay. Just I thought this slide was a little relevant. So
Dr. Saab, I have a problem with this. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes, the World Economic Forum also says that as you become more sustainable, business becomes more sustainable, jobs will not go away, nature of jobs will change. And the problem, sir, is how do you reskill a person, or is it really possible to reskill a person who's, let's say, 35, 40, okay, and in the middle of his or her working career, and suddenly you say, no, hello, your old job is redundant, now you go and do this new thing. This is exactly why. And why? Let's also understand a little bit. One of the reasons why Trump got elected was because of the huge anger from all the steel workers and other industrial workers in the US who lost their jobs because the industries moved out. And despite a lot of talk about reskilling, it is not possible. Let's be honest. You cannot reskill. You can't suddenly completely reskill someone who's 35, 40, or larger. It is unrealistic to expect. While we're sitting in seminars and academia, we can say, oh, okay, you take this money and reskill someone. It doesn't work in real life, unfortunately. In our case, in India, the problem is even worse. So you have, study after study shows that less than 10% of our graduates are employable. Okay, and I'm talking also of graduates of B schools and engineering schools, not even just your BAs and BComs. You need to skill them. You need to give them, even if they don't go. So what has happened in the last 30, 40 years, I mean, this is the case with me as well. First thing, parents said, okay, ye nahi karna. I said, graduate to kam se kam ban ja. Graduate ban ke kya karunga pata nahi tha. Okay, but graduate to kam se kam banna padega. Now, you have this whole, while education has spread, and thank God for that, but with education has also spread aspirations. Now you have a child from a poor family going to a school or a college, getting a degree, okay, and then he or she doesn't get a job because they don't have. Our curriculum does not give them the wherewithal to be employable. So skill development is a key, but it is not. If you think that the reskilling of existing workers is going to help, I don't think that is going to happen, and which is why, to a large extent, despite all my concerns about the environment, I tend to agree with the stand taken by this government, that if you're talking about net carbon neutrality, then we are looking at 2070, not before that. At least on economic terms, that's really not possible. Going to be possible before that. We need those 50 years.
I agree, actually, and this is where we actually come back to square one: the conflict between the economy and climate.
Yeah.
What do we do? So I agree, and I really don't know. This conflict, I guess, remains unresolved, at least as a part of this discussion. And this has been unresolved with me myself personally for a long time. I wish I find some solution at some point. Yeah, right. Thank you.
Good stuff. I think we got about 2 minutes, 2 more minutes. I've got 3, 4 volunteers, 2 volunteers at least, and 2 guests. Faria and Nalini. You guys got quick comments? Maria, Nalini?
I would have been happy if I could have learned about like something about health in relation to environment. Like for example, if we talk about like the fish consumption that is high, but that is required for the health as well, but it's harming the environment. So if you could comment on that, something about health and in relation to environment. Then we
Basically,
could,
These
basically,
questions
you
would
are,
remain.
basically, Faria, you are asking about the fishing, not the.
no. I was just giving an
Fishing.
example because
Yeah.
I had that on my mind currently.
Yeah, okay.
I think we are looking for your comment.
I would just like to recommend. I would like to recommend a documentary called Sea Piracy on Netflix. You must watch it. I think that will give you a better answer than probably any of the experts here. Have you seen Sea Piracy on Netflix?
No, I didn't. No,
you must.
I
You
didn't.
must. I'll probably
watch it.
send you a link on the chat here, and you must
Please,
watch it.
please do that.
Okay, let's go to Nalini. Nalini, her dissertation was on attitude. Come on, you can talk about it.
There's going to be
should
some
have been the
background
expert
noise. I'm sorry about the background noise.
Right.
What I actually wanted to ask, so what I'm studying about in my dissertation is this theory called the finite pool of worry, which talks about how at a given point in time, there's only so much that we as people can worry about. And in the face of a health and economic crisis, that is the pandemic, does the climate change crisis take a backseat? So I was wondering what your general views on the matter would be and if that could be spoken about.
Nalini, and in fact, in my opening remarks only, I had said this, that because of COVID and the health emergency that we had, the entire discussion and the gains that we had made on climate change or climate resilient appropriate behavior, all those things went for a toss. Everybody was locked at home. Everybody was super paranoid about touching spaces. So single-use plastic usage went through the roof. And also post that, disposable gloves, head cover, shoe cover, body cover, and everything became wrapped up in multiple things. And one more, I mean, I teach the course on platform, and one of the things we saw was online buying went through the roof, and online buying itself created single-use packaging and packaging cost in that sense. So those have been, and people's attitude, of course, I mean, we were in a crisis and emergency. So a lot of people thought that let me survive first and then we'll talk about climate change. I'm going to die of climate change in 20 years. This health emergency is
Absolutely
right here as well. Well, anyways, do share more results. Was on, so you already have done the research, it seems. Okay. Rahul, any quick comments? Andrea? Andrea, John? Okay. Digital Women News, I mean, is there some, I can't see a name there, so I have to just use the handle that I see there. Anyways, let's quickly, I think about 2 minutes more. So let's give a minute each. Anurag, you want to closing remarks, and then we go to Jayant and then Rajuji.
Well, from your opening statement, to be honest, Shalin, we set the tone, and I particularly one thing I totally agree on Rajuji's comment that this green finance is not going to happen. It's just a dream. And on Jayant's comment, I totally agree. This 2070 goal thing that we have, extended from 2030 to 2070, that we will be zero emission by 2070. It will be a, it's a practical thing. Yes, we have this livelihood attached and economy is there. But again, then we are sacrificing the climate thing also at the same time. So we must find some balance in between that. Means, yes, we need this coal for the economy. There are the livelihood attached with the coal miners and everything. But how we are going to do it? That's the one question, means how we are going to find a balance, because maybe in 2050 somebody will go and say, no, we are going to extend again. So that's the thing. I don't know what you have to say about this challenge.
It's okay. I mean, I think we would take it offline. I just want to have closing comments from others as well.
Okay.
They can close the room anytime. So Jayant and then Rajuji as well. I'll come back here.
Yeah. So in closing comments, I think the dilemma still persists: the economy versus climate. That fight still persists, and now, as I said, there is whole tokenomics, which is in the space of crypto, which has compounded the issue, in my opinion. I also feel that yes, there are some financial technology solutions which probably can be used, because there are people who are keen on investing only in clean techs, and then there are platforms where we can ensure that at an individual level, I can probably make that green finance happen to whatever it's worth. So yeah, I probably would refrain, because I think we're already running out of time. So yeah, Raju.
Okay, so quick, huge issues before the planet, before the Indian government and all of us. No easy answers. We will need to find three parts. If you look at economy, one is a way of transitioning to a more sustainable economy. Second is the way of funding that transition. And third is the way of dealing with the people issues in terms of jobs and unemployment and poverty that arises out of the climate crisis and out of the transition to sustainability. So these are the three basic things that we will need to tackle.
I think that's perfect in that sense. So we are done. If there are no more comments, we could go back to the main session as well. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shailen.
you.
Thank you, Rajuji, and thank you, Jay.
Thank
Thanks
you,
all
wonderful
volunteer.
for insightful discussion.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, volunteers, if you had taken notes, you could also fill up that Excel sheet as well.
Yeah.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye. Thanks, Shailen.
Yeah. You are based out of Pune, Jayant, is it? No, Bangalore.
You're on a mute, Jayant.
I'm in Lavasa, yeah. So somewhere about 50 kilometers away from Pune, yeah. So we have our Christ University campus out here. So
in Lavasa?
Yes.
And that's a fancy place to have a business school as well.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.